Since I'm going to be doing a lot of criticizing and nitpicking throughout this video, I just want to first and foremost shoo away anyone who has a problem with the casting of Halle Bailey as Ariel in the live-action Little Mermaid, because you've proven time and time again to be insane and delusional, and this video isn't for you. This video only contains constructive criticism. It's not for people who just scrounge up any negative thing possible so they can disguise their hatefulness as criticism, when really they only have one true issue, and that's that Ariel isn't played by a white person, which is such a minor difference, yet they act as if she's a completely different species. It's nuts. So if you're one of those people who just draws the line at skin color, then either go to one of my other videos explaining why you need to get over yourself and why nobody on earth could have played Ariel better than Halle Bailey, or just go. Not just off my channel, but preferably off the entire internet, and probably out of society in general. So yeah, now that's out of the way, let's get into it. As I have said many times in several different videos, I am just absolutely overjoyed by the perfect casting of Halle Bailey as Ariel, who is a character that was very prominent in my childhood, as Disney animated movies are primarily what made me fall in love with film, which is why I'm so fascinated to see how filmmakers translate them into a live-action world. And I know Ariel is prominent to a lot of you as well, and I think it's truly beautiful that the shade of her skin isn't a limitation or restriction in seeing that childhood character come to life. Within Halle, I see the Ariel that I've always known, and she also provides additional layers and elements to the character with her ethereal, otherworldly, siren-like presence. I truly feel as if I'm seeing a beloved childhood character come to life in a way that I just didn't get with any of the other Disney live-action castings, aside from Lily James's Cinderella. And it's ironic and speaks volumes that Halle has had the most backlash by far and is the only one who had a hate campaign, even though she is the most perfect in my eyes and in the eyes of many others. If you can't see it, why am I able to, and why are so many other people able to? It's definitely a you issue. But I thought I already requested you to leave, so go if you're a hater. Okay, so everybody left watching this video should be in agreement that Halle is perfection as Ariel, and nobody could have done it better, because that's the truth. But it's time to be real. Disney director Rob Marshall and the costume, makeup, and hair departments did her dirty in the final product. Even though her spirit and talents inevitably shine through in the film because she is just so magical and so Ariel, in my opinion, the filmmakers absolutely did not deliver upon the vision of Halle as Ariel. They kind of set her up and gave all the ignorant trolls more fuel to project hate. This was a groundbreaking, revolutionary casting decision that was inevitably going to be met with backlash, and Halle needed to be supported to the fullest. Make her come across as best as she can, give her all the tools she needs to fully shine and shut as many ignorant people up as possible, change as many minds as possible, have as many people on her side as possible, get as many people to see that having a person of color portray a traditionally white character, not at all the major change they think it is. But I feel like she did all the work herself. And I can't believe this film had the huge budget it did, access to the greatest artists in the world, all the professional creative minds at their disposal, and things ended up turning out the way they did. And I'm not just talking about the film itself constantly dodging potential for greatness and playing things very safely, though I did ultimately enjoy it, but I'm talking specifically about having Halle Bailey fully shine and live out her Disney princess moment. And yeah, of course she shines. She's the best aspect of the film and elevates it. But like I said, that's completely on her part. The filmmakers hardly support her. Some of the iffy direction doesn't do her any favors, but I particularly want to discuss how she was styled, how she was costumed, And the blame is mostly to be put on director Rob Marshall and costume designer Colleen Atwood. While every other live-action Disney princess wore all their iconic looks as well as some new ones, live-action Ariel had even less costume changes than her animated counterpart. Aside from her mermaid look, she wears the same blue village dress for all 3 days she's on land, and the only other things she wears in the entire film are a burlap sack and a honeymoon dress at the very end that is pretty much the exact same as the blue dress, but in pink. That's it. So obviously not much variety in Ariel's looks. You may say she also wears a nightgown, but those are just her undergarments that she wears under the blue dress. She never wears the iconic sparkling seafoam dress from the animated film or the wedding dress, but the most baffling omission is her signature Disney princess ball gown, which is the most expected look in the whole film, as that's the main look the character is marketed in. That's her big moment for extravagance. But the live-action film doesn't give Ariel her grand Disney princess moment. She doesn't even wear anything extravagant. And though that may seem like a minor, petty concern, it's such a major disservice to Halle to not just deprive her of her main Disney princess moment, but to take away more than one of her expected opportunities for a dazzling, breathtaking, twinkling wardrobe spectacle which all the other live-action Disney princesses have gotten. Especially after Cinderella set the bar for lavish, opulent, enchanting costumes, there's the expectation for the other live-actions to also play into the fantasy and escapism. And while none of the subsequent films have ever reached the greatness of Cinderella's costume design, they still gave the characters at least one glamorous fairy tale moment. When Halle Bailey was cast as Ariel, the most exciting thing other than anticipating hearing her heavenly voice sing the iconic songs was anticipating what she would look like in the role. Just imagining the costume changes she would have and all the different extravagant looks. And it never even crossed my mind that they wouldn't really give that to her, which is especially unfortunate considering how much was already stacked up against her. As much of a minor thing you may think it to be, I sure as hell think it's necessary to give Halle all the opulence, glam, fantasy, and princessy grandeur that is expected and has been given to all those preceding her, especially because she is a black woman playing Ariel. It rubs me the wrong way they did less than the bare minimum with her costuming. There's no reason this shouldn't have been a costume film. I mean, that's one of the biggest factors of a Disney live-action adaptation. It's where they really tend to shine, and it's one of the only areas they're able to actually be considered for awards. And you may argue that Ariel's mermaid form is supposed to be the main attraction in the film, and yeah, it is very cool that she's the only Disney princess who is a mythical creature, but A, that's not how she's typically represented in the Disney princess lineup. B, Ariel is not her fullest self in her mermaid form, and she finds her happiness in being a human. And C, just because we get to see a cool mermaid tale doesn't mean we should be deprived of all the grand, magical costume pieces that are expected. And once again, I just really think Halle Bailey deserved that princess moment. There was so much potential for her to sparkle and stun, and even if she didn't get any extravagant looks, some variety at least would have been nice. Being deprived of opulent costume pieces hurt the film itself as well, and limits the magic, fantasy, grandeur, and visual splendor more so than Rob Marshall's naturalistic direction of the film already does. Okay, so now I'm going to go through Ariel's looks in the film and show you how they should have been adjusted, and then talk about the missing costume pieces that should have been in the film, what context they could have existed in, and what they should have looked like. I'll start with Ariel's mermaid look. Even though Ariel's mermaid form doesn't technically include any costume pieces and is practically just creature design, the costume designer Colleen Atwood still created this look. And you know, I don't generally dislike Colleen Atwood's work. She has a lot of nice sensibilities, and I love her tendency to lean into soft colors, but she too often doesn't push her designs as far as I'd like her to. And though simplicity can be lovely, she likes to gravitate towards plain, basic, and boring. That's just not what I'd crave in a Disney Little Mermaid film. But director Rob Marshall also likes to keep things rather plain, so I guess they're a match made in heaven, or hell, depending on how you look at it. I think Sandy Powell, the costume designer for Cinderella, amongst many other gorgeously wardrobed films, should have been the costume designer here, and really everywhere. I don't know why she wasn't. She worked with Rob Marshall on his previous film and made him look really good. But she especially is a perfect designer for fairy tales and fantasy, as she infuses every look with so much distinctive personality and magic, even in characters who aren't expected to be the ones to wear show-stopping costumes. Like, the Prince and Cinderella is wearing such beautifully ornate, detailed costumes with interesting fabrics, textures, colors, and designs. Compare that to Prince Eric's costumes in The Little Mermaid, which are so boring and dull. That doesn't need to be the case just because he's a man, he can be glamorous too. Anyway, I digress. I just am a little salty towards Miss Colleen Atwood for giving so little. But Ariel's mermaid look. The most important aspect of this look, of course, is the tail. And I think Miss Atwood hit an absolute home run there. It's exactly what I would have hoped for. It's magical, iridescent, the most vibrant thing in the whole film, and I don't think I'd change a thing about it. If anything, maybe make it longer, but I guess a long tail wouldn't really suit Ariel, as she is the Little Mermaid. As for the top, I don't by any means dislike that they've ditched the animated character's iconic seashell bra, and instead she has scales covering that area. I think they pulled that off very well and it looks great. But if I were in charge, I wouldn't have gone the scale route. I would have definitely implemented seashells into the top because that is just such an iconic Ariel element. Like, her three essential distinctive visual features as a mermaid are green tail, red hair, and purple seashell top. That's Ariel. However you interpret or translate those things into live action is up to the filmmaker, but they are kinda essential. The direction they went is close enough, and I'm really not bothered by it, but when asked about the absence of the seashell tops, Colleen Atwood said, "Having them all plonk seashells on their breasts seemed like a weird way to go, and when you start putting shells on real bodies, it's hard to make them look good, believe me." I don't believe her. At least I don't believe she is thinking of that concept in the right way. If she's thinking of just literally placing seashells over each breast, yeah, that could come across as a little silly, but there are so many different ways you can incorporate seashells into a top. It's especially puzzling because King Triton's armor is made out of shell-like material, and I think that same approach would have worked wonderfully for Ariel's top as well. Here's a little mock-up concept I whipped up, and I also adjusted her hair, which I'll circle back to later. I think this is a much more effective way of translating that element into a photorealistic world. It's still a seashell top, but adjusted for live action, and it doesn't at all look weird or silly. Definitely a much more mature, sophisticated approach to that idea of the seashell top that works so well in animation, while this leans into the live action realm without completely discarding what came before. And I'm fixating on this even though I said I don't have a problem with the approach they went with, because I just in general think these live action films should adjust things accordingly when translating everything into a new medium and take into account what works best for it. But that doesn't always mean fully tossing away the established iconography. shouldn't these films be companion pieces to the animated films that offer an alternative, more lifelike, more complex, more detailed way to view them, rather than just being straight up rebrands? Anyway, I digress again. I'm not fully bothered by the design of Ariel's top, and I think her tail looks great, but where they really did a great disservice to Halle Bailey was in the hair, and makeup as well, but mostly the hair. Now, I absolutely love the idea of mixing loose strands of hair with locks. It provides such a visually interesting texture that's so pleasing to watch move underwater, and I also love the idea of having multiple shades of red in her hair because, once again, visually interesting. And I definitely prefer her having a more natural ginger color instead of cherry red. But even though in the actual film there are plenty of moments where the hair looks vibrant, it's so inconsistent. A lot of the time it's very washed out, dull, and often straight up brown, particularly in the money shots used for the trailers and marketing, like the Under the Sea sequence in particular, which is especially baffling because if those are the shots and images Disney is using to sell the film, that's what most people's impressions are gonna be based on. And since the character of Ariel's most iconic distinguishable trait is her vibrant red hair, taking that away and exhibiting to the world what appears to be a dusty brown instead gives people more reason to point to her and say that doesn't look like Ariel, when it's the hair color that's making her look less distinguishable, not the race of the actor. Halle Bailey does look like Ariel, by the way, if you have eyes and don't immediately stop looking after finding out she's black. But yeah, Halle Bailey needs as little of that negativity as possible because it's gonna happen no matter what, and making masses of people think they've taken away the red hair, which is an element that's unique to the character of Ariel, makes even the people who don't have a problem with the casting hesitate and reinforces the haters even further. It's such a simple fix that would have saved Disney so much grief, and honestly, it's one of the main factors that I've seen turn the general public away from the film. I mean, in these sequences, they could have simply made the hair look more consistent with the scenes where it is more distinctively red. It does look significantly better that way, and even if for some reason Rob Marshall put his foot down and said he wanted to keep the scenes as they were, well, that'd be strange because once again, the hair color is so inconsistent throughout the film. Disney could have ordered the marketing department to tweak the hair vibrancy in those moments just for the trailers, because at least in the actual film you get some variety with the hair color, but in the trailers it just looks brown, and that's such a horrible marketing decision. The amount of people I hear every day who have no idea still that she's meant to be a redhead in the movie, that's just unnecessary, causing unnecessary problems. And yes, while I think anyone who watches the film will be less upset about it due to the constantly changing vibrancy, I still think they needed to settle on a more vibrant color. I mean, this looks so much better. I have eyes, you have eyes, this looks better. How did the filmmakers not test this color? And if they did, how did they not settle on it? Because saying this looks significantly better than what is actually in the film is one of the most factual opinions I've probably ever said. And with so much time and money and professional artists at their disposal, they end up going with something that makes her look less distinguishably Ariel, which is not beneficial for them, and especially not beneficial for sweet Halle. Like I said, they're really not taking advantage of the potential of having her as Ariel, at least visually. They're not supporting the vision. So this is the Entertainment Weekly cover that was released, and you know, it looks like a lovely mermaid that I could see being Ariel if you told me it was her. But this cover, with my Ariel redesign, it's undeniably Ariel. It's show-stopping, it's iconic, it's immediately shutting some people up, It instantly pushes a few haters away from the dark side. It's not as easy to target or be underwhelmed by. There's no reason this shouldn't have been reality. I gave her a side part and reshaped her hair to provide more volume because the flat middle part that was used in the actual film was not doing my sweet Ariel any favors. It looks so awkward to the point where they did actually step in digitally during post-production for a few shots and altered Halle's hair with CGI in some places they thought needed patching up. You can see the differences in the trailer when compared to the final film. It honestly would have been a lot easier if she just wore a wig. The goal for the hair department, led by Camille Friend, was to not cut, damage, or ruin Halle's natural locks and find a way to make her a redhead while still maintaining her natural hair. So they didn't want to risk dyeing her locks red. They dyed her roots and wrapped custom red hair around her locks in 3 different shades to cover the natural color. This process cost a whopping $150,000, and as I said, I love the texture, but the styling, the scalp area, and the vibrancy of the color are not being handled with as much care or effort. A side part would have taken them a long ways, would have been a significant improvement, but I mean, she dyed her roots just for them to be covered up with CGI in the final film anyway. They should have just not even messed with her natural hair and gave her a wig instead. Camille Friend said she didn't even attempt to go the wig route because she didn't think it would work and that it especially would look crazy given how long Halle's natural locks are. But like, look at this. Halle managed to pull off not just a wig, but a short wig at the Met Gala, and she did so without the backing of a Disney blockbuster budget. In the film, there are wigs everywhere. Vanessa wore a wig, Triton wore a wig, Ursula wore a wig. A wig would have given them more freedom for the shape and styling of Ariel's hair, allowing them to fully deliver on the luscious fantasy mermaid looks, while preserving Halle's natural hair, so they should have done that and done it with more vibrancy. Or at least use more of the reddest strands they used because there were only a few of the deepest shade. And as far as the makeup, they went for a more natural look because she is a mermaid living in the ocean. But I think they should have done the opposite because she is a mermaid living in the ocean. She's a mythical creature and a Disney princess. Make her look as glamorously fantastical and magical as possible. Halle is a beautiful woman, and that beauty still shines through in the movie, but they are just not doing her any favors and preventing her from fully shining. Okay, I've got to move on. I'm not going to talk about her burlap sack look because, like, who cares? I'm moving on to the look she has for pretty much the rest of the film, which is the blue village dress, and honestly, I really love this look. I love the dainty, feminine cottagecore vibes. The textures are very evocative of the ocean, and the colors suit Halle so beautifully. And those soft pink boots with the satin ribbons are freaking incredible. They're so awesome. And the idea of having a pink headband to match the boots is perfect, but I really dislike the dinosaur scale pattern. Not just because it looks out of place, but it reminds me of tacky athletic wear circa 2012. It would have looked much better and much more fitting to have a soft pink floral pattern instead. That definitely amplifies the delicate cottagecore aesthetic, but what I personally would have done, at least for one of the days on land because there's just no variety, is have a pink satin ribbon as a headband because it would match the laces of her awesome boots. It would really tie the look together, and also for variety, why not try different hairstyles and maybe even for one of the days have like, I don't know, a pink ribbon wrapped around her corset or something just to switch it up, because while I really like the look, it's certainly not striking enough or sumptuous enough to be the only thing she wears throughout the entire film. Once again, major missed opportunity, and like, this is a Disney mermaid fantasy. It's not the time to be basic and restrained. Even Vanessa and the Queen get more costume changes than Ariel, despite having like 5 minutes of screen time, and both of their wardrobes are more extravagant than Ariel's. Now, the honeymoon dress is also very lovely, and they should have used it for one of the 3 days Ariel is on land rather than in the finale, because it's so similar to the blue dress, and though it's very pretty and the color is gorgeous on Halle, once again, it's not lavish or opulent enough to be saved for a special moment like the finale, where we expect something more extravagant. And I guess you could sort of interpret this honeymoon gown as a stand-in for Ariel's iconic pink princess gown, but as I said, it's not spectacular enough to fully function as that. So that brings me to the absence of Ariel's main princess look. I've established that I think it was dirty to not allow Halle to have her signature princess moment, and that also limits the grandeur of the film as a whole, but I just don't think it ever crossed anyone's mind that she wouldn't get that signature look. It was just something expected to be present in the film. Here's a little concept piece I did of how it could have looked based on the vibe of the film and Colleen Atwood's general aesthetic, but with a little more flair. And honestly, even if she wore Queen Selena's engagement party gown, I would have been very satisfied, because that's probably my favorite costume piece in the entire film, and it could totally function as Ariel's signature look. And you may think there wasn't an opportunity to fit the iconic gown into the film, but I beg to differ. I think an obvious place where they could have included a small additional scene through reshoots or additional photography that would have made a major impact is after Eric and Ariel spend time together in Eric's library. Eric is so caught up in the moment with Ariel that he loses track of time, and Grimsby enters to inform him he'll be late for his birthday dinner. So Eric asks Ariel to join him, and she agrees. The maids dress her in one of Queen Selena's old gowns, and when she meets the Queen at dinner, the Queen mentions that she's glad the gown is no longer just collecting dust in the closet because she hasn't been able to fit into it for years, and then everyone at dinner is just absolutely charmed and delighted by Ariel's quirky self. Not only would this be a simple addition that would give Ariel her big princess moment, but I think it'd also be a very necessary scene, because in the actual film we don't get to see Ariel and the Queen interact before the finale, and that dynamic really needed to be built so that in the end it's a more natural arc for the Queen to accept the merpeople. That's just a simple fix that would have greatly benefited the film, but I personally would have had multiple grand costume moments. Like, after the Kiss the Girl scene, Ariel and Eric could have arrived to the palace late for Eric's birthday ball, where people from the entire kingdom celebrate in the ballroom, and Ariel dances with Eric. And she could either wear the pink gown, a new gown, or the turquoise gown that has been used in marketing and in the Disney parks, but has never made any appearance in an actual film. Like, I don't know why everyone just settled for the mundane. There's no reason there shouldn't have been a few sweeping moments like this. Like, it's kind of driving me nuts that so much potential was left on the table, and that's why I so badly want a sequel, one that isn't directed by Rob Marshall or costumed by Colleen Atwood. Another opportunity to put Ariel into something fancy could have been at the engagement party, like the maids get her dolled up while she's crying thinking Eric fell for another woman, and it can be a very powerful moment, and that also would have been cool to see some of the climax take place with Ariel in a luxurious gown. Like, there was no reason to exclude these things, and definitely no excuse, as they had the budget to make it happen, and these moments would have strengthened the character dynamics as well as the film as a whole. And I know a lot of people are upset about the absence of the sparkling seafoam dress, but I'm not too mad about that one, as it would be kind of silly for Triton to design a dress for his daughter on the spot. But there are still ways around that, one being that Ariel's sisters could have been present for that transformation scene and helped him or something, but no, she just shows up in the same old blue dress. And yeah, I get thematically that the blue dress represents her life as a human, but it's not powerful enough symbolism to fully erase these sweeping, fantastical moments. I at least get what they're going for here, and I can look past it. I just disagree with them and think they could have been more creative. And the Princess Diana-inspired wedding gown is also gone, but it's still unclear if Eric and Ariel have even been married at the end of the live-action film, or if they're just engaged. But whatever scenario, wedding, honeymoon, or engagement party, she should have worn something more special here too, because she's a freaking magical mermaid Disney princess who deserved to shine. And it's unfortunate the filmmaking team didn't do more to support her, because they actually ended up fueling the hatred. And yeah, to hell with anyone who has a problem with Ariel being portrayed by a black woman, but why would they give her less than the bare minimum? Why would they not want to help Halle prove people wrong? Why would they not want to have as many people on her side as possible? I demand a sequel. I demand a Disney princess crossover film in the vein of the Barbie movie, and I demand a live-action Kingdom Hearts movie, because I like to have fun, and every film has a different purpose. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas on how you would have changed Ariel's costumes and styling, as well as what scenes you think could have been added to include some more extravagance, glam, and fantasy, which the film was sorely lacking thanks to the naturalistic, basic simplicity enthusiasts Rob Marshall and Colleen Atwood. It drives me nuts that the ingredients were there for an absolute home run, but Halle Bailey was the one doing all the heavy lifting. Anyway, I think that's all I have left to say, so bye.